second one to be just as riveting and just as upsetting as the first one, but not necessarily because he was beaten, but because of the amount of drama that his mother caused in his life. Now, if you haven't seen part one, I suggest you watch part one, because it actually is very, very interesting. The whole, everything that I can't even explain it. Like, everything his mom does to him, from keeping him in the basement to, burning his arm over the fire stove, to making him swallow ammonia, to eating feces. And I even watched a special with him talking, and he said that it was just easier sometimes for him to consume the dog feces than to try to put it down the sink. If he just got it over with, then he knew that his mother would not force him to eat it. So I just found that to be horrific. So where did we leave off? We left off where he was being rescued, actually, by the policeman, and he was driving away. And the policeman says, "You're free." And he couldn't believe it, actually. So he takes him, and he sets him up in his first house. And he doesn't have any clothes or anything. He's sitting in the police station in a room, and his social worker comes in, and he's talking to her, but he doesn't open up. He's very quiet. He's actually in a little bit of a panic because he feels like he has released the family secret, which is really sad. And as he's sitting there, he's concerned because the police officers just called his mother and said, "Your son will never be coming home again." And so she brings some clothes and in a paper bag, drops them off, and she, as nobody's looking, she grabs him and says, "I hope you're happy with what you've done. You have destroyed all of our lives. You've destroyed our family. Look what you have done." And she's blaming him for not even saying anything. He just finally broke down, and when the principal asked, "Why are you stealing food? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you late?" he had to tell him. The kid looked malnourished. He was 11 years old, and he looked like he was so scrawny and tiny. Well, unfortunately, he spends the next, he's 12 at the time when he's rescued, so 6 years trying to figure out the system, going from home to home. And that's really sad. He gets attached to this first family who really cares about him when he finally does find a family, but he acts out terribly. And his mother is on this bizarre rampage. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Like, she wants him to be put in prison, for a mental institution prison, for the rest of his life, that he is the one who forced her to behave like that. Can you believe that? So he has to go to court, okay, and he has to say he wants to be the ward of the court, which he does, but he almost takes back everything that he said, and he was gonna say, "No, I lied, I didn't, and I didn't mean to do that," and he just didn't know if he could go through with it, because he had destroyed the family, as his mother said, and he didn't want to do that to his brothers, and he was fearful fearful that one of his brothers may actually get the brunt of the abuse when he was gone. Which, by the way, does happen. However, he stands up to the judge, and the judge peers down at him, and he does say, he says, yes, I don't want to ever go back there again. Please make me a ward of the court. So now, his mom brings him his clothes and says, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family. However, he's a ward of the court. He's a foster child, and they're called F children. Like, they did something wrong to get in that position, and everybody kind of sees them like that, which is so sad. I did not know this at all. I had no idea this was, like, even part of it. So, as he's going, and he doesn't either, as he's going through life and the different homes, he starts acting out, and he just wants to be accepted. That's all he wants to do, is he wants to be accepted. He just wants some friends. He said no friends ever. So he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. He sticks out because he has no social skills, really. He has no family. And actually one time in school he said, well, I'm a foster child. And his older foster brother, grabs him and says, don't ever say that, because we are considered the F children. It is not a good thing. And he kind of bows his head, and so he sticks to himself. Then he finds a friend, and this friend is not a good influence on him. His name's John, I think. And this is why I read my notes. But, because somebody was asking me that I should just tell the story, that it seems like I don't read it. Well, I read them so many times, and I don't want to get anything wrong. So, what happens is that I start to kind of jump around. But I'm going to try it this way. He meets this kid, John, and John is very cool. He's getting tired of being beaten up by these kids at school and made fun of and bullied, and he notices that this guy is so cool and he doesn't get beat up on, and he decides to befriend him. Well, he has to be a part of his group, quote unquote. And what he has to do is he has to flatten this one teacher that is really giving John, his friend, a hard time. And he's like, what do you mean to be in your group? I have to do this. He said, yeah, man, if you want to be part of the gang, the people that hang around me, man, they do stuff for me. So he's like, okay, I can do that. And he goes to do it, and he just can't. He can't flatten some of these cars. He's done other things. He's run away. He's, stolen on his parents, but nothing was really against somebody's personal property. He just really had a hard time. He couldn't do it. So he bought this friend of his, John. He liked cigarettes, so he bought him a carton of Marlboro cigarettes. And so he forgave him, but he goes, you're still gonna have to be initiated into our group. John was saying, David's like, well, what do I have to do? He said, you need to burn down this teacher's classroom. David said, no way, man. I can't do that. I'm not gonna do that. Time goes on, and they become friends. Nobody bothers with David, and he's not as awkward anymore. They're going fairly well at this foster house, except he is kind of mouthy and does get into fights with his brother, and just it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult on the foster parents, and joking, and he starts making up all these rumors, and it becomes as if it was his idea to burn down the school, and he starts bragging. He's like, yeah, man, I was gonna do it. And, all of a sudden, it's not John's idea anymore. It's David who is the bad guy. He's the bad boy. He's the bad ass, The problem with this is that one day, David sees a billow of smoke coming out of that teacher's office, and he realizes that John has gone through with it. John's standing there going, help me, man, help me. I'm stuck. I can't get this fire out. So David looks around and he's, okay, I'll help you. And he jumps in and he puts out the fire, and he realizes that it's just out of control. He's like, let's get out of here. And he helps him out, and they run for John's house. And John totally throws him under the bus. David says, you're gonna tell them I didn't do it, correct? And John's like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't there. You were there. They saw you, not me. Well, that was David's, I think, wake-up call that people are only out for themselves. And I think it crushes him in some ways that he thought he had a friend, but he didn't have a friend. So he's in big trouble. He ends up, the police are called. He ends up hiding at this guy's house, John, for 2 days. And finally, John's like, well, man, you can't stay here. You gotta go. And David's standing there as John slams the door in his face, and he says, I thought you were my friend. And the guy just walked away. So David is just disheartened. I mean, not only has his whole world been just uprooted, but now he realizes that people are really just for themselves, and there are no real friends in this world. Not true friends like he wants or thinks. And in some ways, he wants to call his mom and dad so badly. His dad's supposed to come see him, and it's sad because he sits and he waits and he waits and he waits, and his dad never comes. Never. Not one time. The whole time he was at the foster house when his dad was supposed to be there, did he ever show up. Of course, his foster mom feels terrible, but David is really in trouble now, and his parole officer picks David up and says, get your stuff. We've got another kid coming in, because this foster father has had it. He says, I love you, but I can't do this anymore. You're gonna have to figure it out, So they take him to this place called The Hill, which is a home for boys, basically, that, for juvenile delinquents. And he starts to act up there a little bit. And his foster mom, that is no longer technically his foster mom, but she still loves him, says, we love you, we're gonna help you, we're gonna take you to court, we're gonna hire an attorney. Maybe he still was there, actually, but he was in The Hill right at the moment, serving out until the judge decided that, what his punishment was going to be. And his mom, the foster mom, did say that his mother is riding all over this. She loves this because it's proving that her case is right, that she had every right to discipline him because he is out of control. And he can't believe it. He realizes what he's doing, and his parole officer takes him and says, look, you have a month, maybe 2. You better make a good impression on this judge, because your mother wants to have you committed for the rest of your life, and she wants to get off the hook for what she did to you. And he just walks away and cannot believe what he's hearing. He is absolutely astounded by what he hears. And his mother's gonna win. She's gonna win again, he says. He lies in bed that night and decides it's him who's causing his problems. It's him who is making his life difficult. But he's not gonna let her win, no matter what. She will not win in his book. He's not gonna let her win. And so what he does is he goes to bed, and literally within a week, he is the top rated person there. I mean, he is instantly a better kid. He shows everybody what he's made out of. And this is where it really comes together for him. When they go to court, he's really nervous. And the judge, his parole officer says, do not get mad. Do not get mad. Do not say a thing, no matter what they say about you. They're just talking. They can say anything they want. So David, okay. And he just kind of puts his head down and he listens to everything they're saying now. He once committed that everything she did to him, she was justified in doing. And this is where he just shows his stuff and he sits there and, yes sir, yes sir, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir. So he walks out of the courtroom, a free man, time served. And it was not on his record. And as he's leaving, his mom's like, you'll see that boy right there, that boy, it. And she just can't, she won't even say his name ever. To the point of where at one point earlier on, when his mother gives the clothes to the social worker, never looks at David, never calls him by his name, just says it, that kid, that boy. And the social worker looks at her and says, that's David. His name is David. His name is David. And she continues to say, David, David, David. And his mother just continues to say, it, or that. It's terrible. It's horrible. However, he walks out and he shapes up his life. So he gets transferred. Because they can't handle him anymore. He moves schools, and this is where he meets a really nice kid who's kind of shy, doesn't speak English very well, and they just hang out together. They're very cool. They're very quiet. He gets good grades. Nothing happens. He loves the people that he's with, except for one night he comes home and boom, he has to leave again, and it's like the third place in a month, and so far, and his parole officer picks him up, and it's like, apparently the guy was accused of molesting this one girl that was in the house who was looking for attention. None of it was ever proven to be true. So anyway, he leaves that house, he goes to this other house that had just gotten signed on, and literally, these people, this woman treats him like a 2-year-old. She coddles him, she's very nice, but the fighting that goes on between the two is just exhausting to him, and he can tell that the reason she wanted him there was to just to have somebody to be with, and he felt bad, he felt bad. But I think going through all these homes that were not perfect made him realize that how bad his situation was, but 2, that nobody lives a perfect life. That we all have problems, and it's up to us and up to him to change that if that's what we want for ourselves. And that's what he did. He had gotten, he was a kid too. He was trying to find himself. He moves in with these really cool people, like really laid back, kind of hippie-ish couple that let him do whatever they want, but they do fight a lot. But they move him. They move and they take him with them, and he doesn't get into any more trouble. But he meets these neighbors, and one is an ex-veteran, and the other one doesn't really like him at first, but he kind of takes him under his wing, and he is where it gets kind of emotional, or it really starts to take hold his life. So one night, he's been spending all this time, drag racing and, getting into trouble, and he decides to, he's hanging out with these neighbors, and so he's been drag racing and everything, and he decides to, he came home, and he's been hanging out with these neighbors that have kind of taken him under his wing, taught him a lot of stuff, and have taken a liking to him, even though he was kind of a crazy kid. But now all kids, all boys are crazy, and they're just wild. He was getting out all of that energy that he was stuck in the basement for so many years. That's a long time to not be able to run and play with your friends. But he calls his parole officer and says, "Please come get me. I am not in a situation that is healthy for me." So for the first time in his life, everybody realizes that this kid is actually, and it gives me goosebumps, that he's actually gonna grow up to be something. And they all knew he was capable of it. It was just whether or not he was gonna allow his surrounding or his past to, mold him into who he would become, which he doesn't. He actually uses this to his benefit. So he gets a job as a car salesman, and the one neighbor is absolutely incensed. He's pissed that he dropped out of high school. Well, after he was doing really well, picked him up in his Corvette. He was always salesman of the month, and it was funny. The economy had fallen, and he stopped making as much money. And then he realized, I need to get my GED. I need to get a college education. And he goes into the Air Force. This is where he just thrives. He becomes like the best. He writes this book. He wins the Pulitzer Prize, and he gets young pilots of the year or something. But like I said, I'm not even looking at my notes today because I'm just trying it this way. But he wins this really important prize, and I don't know anything about the Air Force, what they give out or hand out, but I do know what the Pulitzer Prize is. So he gets this award, and every one of his foster families, the ones that he cared a lot about, are there, and so are the neighbors. So he is really just everything. He's proving to himself that he is doing awesome, that he overcame all of these things that could have destroyed him, and he is the one, not anybody else. He is the one that's made his life awesome. And he calls his mother, or actually she calls him. She contacts him out of the blue, and he's kind of surprised. She says something to the effect that, in her own words, that she was sorry, or that she always knew that he would be somebody someday, and all this crap, right? And he finally asked her why she abused him the way she did. Now, he doesn't tell in this book, but he does say, with what came out of her mouth, I was in tears, crying, and I now understood a lot more. Not that it gave her an excuse, but it definitely explained why. So I'm curious to read in his next book. I don't know if that's out yet. I haven't checked, so I've been so busy. So at the end of this book, he is walking and if you saw the first one, there is a lake that he goes up to with his family in the summer, and he always wanted to go back and get a place there, stay there with his own family. And here he is. He has a house on the lake in California, and he's life was just to be loved. That's it. He craved it so bad, and he just couldn't understand. Now, how about his father? He did see his father one more time. He went to the station. Well, actually, he kept calling different station houses. And what happened was that everybody was kind of evading his questions. And he finally just drives up in his new Camaro. And he's like, "Hey, man." And the guy stands up and he's like, "David PELZER, nice to see you." And he shakes his hand. He realizes what a man he's become. And he says, "Yeah, I'm here, and I want to know what's going on with my dad. Nobody will tell me, and don't bullshit me. Something's wrong." And he said, "Yeah, he quit about a year ago, but he retired. He didn't get fired." So David says, "Where do you think I'll find him?" And he says, "I don't know. He's just drunk all the time." He says, "The only time I ever see him is when he needs money. He moved out of your mom's house, and he's, sometimes he lives on the streets and sometimes he doesn't." So David goes to the bar where he knows his father will be, and he sits there and he waits outside of this bar for hours waiting for him. And he finally sees his dad, and his dad is slumped over the table, drunk, passed out drunk. And he just can't believe what he sees. He can't believe that all these people were just walking by him and not helping him. He doesn't even know if his dad's alive or dead. And he finally wakes his dad up, and his dad looks up with these, and he said he didn't even want to look into his father's eyes because he wanted to remember him like the superhero that he had thought of him many, many years ago. The strong man, the man that could save him. But now he realized that this man was a shell of who he was. And it was because of his mother, his life. But he no longer blamed himself for his dad's drinking. Because he'd become a man. He'd been top pilot of the year. He had joined the secret mission and had done that for 20 years or so. I mean, the guy did amazing for himself. Let's just say that his life could have been horrible, but he did not let that happen. And that's what he wants to. He wanted at the end, when I was reading the end, he said, first I died about his father. So he says to his dad, he says, why me? What was it that I did so wrong that you hated about me? And he said, "It's not you." He said, "Get out of this town. Get out of this town. Never come back here. Never come back to see your mother or me." And he says, "But wait, before you go, I want to show you something." And he reaches into his back pocket and he pulls out this silver badge from the fire department. And it says, it's a retirement badge. And he shows it to him. And he nods his head. And he says, "I love you, Dad." And his dad just kind of nodded. But he knew what he had done to him and what he allowed to be done to him. And yet his son overcame all of that. And he was just welling with pride. And as he walked away, he just kind of looked back, and his dad shrugged his shoulders and went back into the bar. And at that point, there was nothing he could do. And he's driving away thinking he'll never see his father again, knowing that he was very sick, that he was going to let alcohol take his life. And that really upset him, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. But it did make him leave, and he got on that plane. This is before he was just joined the Air Force, and he got on that plane, his first plane ride, and he such a life for himself. You know, his brothers are, I guess they survived. One was in the oldest one went in the army. It doesn't really go into this book about what happened to them. The only thing it does say was that earlier on, when he had a friend that didn't speak very good English, when he was getting his, realizing that he had to pick the right friends, that he couldn't get into trouble anymore, or else his mom was going to commit him for the rest of his life. He was that close to being in a mental institution forever. That close. Think about that. And I think he did. I think he really, really did think about that. But he did. When he was moved in with this new couple, and they gave him kind of a lot of freedom or whatever, he was really close to his old house, and he went to the school just because he wanted to see. I mean, not that he was trying to, he didn't even think about his brothers being there. And he saw, I think it was Stephen, his same, it was the brother, I think he named it after his son, after. And he saw, I mean, his brother was so excited to see him at the first day. So he said, I'll be here tomorrow when you get here. And apparently his mom found out, of course, because she knows everything. And the next day he shows up and he was like, hey, Stephen, over here. I'm pretty sure that's which one it was. Because I don't have my notes, I can't remember. But he looks behind her, and there's his mother smiling, that horrible, evil smile she had. And he just freaks out, and his friend's like, let's go. There's no mamacita loco, your mamacita loco. And he's yelling this at him, and he's like, get out of here now. So they run, and he runs into a car. He gets hit by a car. So, well, nothing happens. I mean, he doesn't go back to juvie. I mean, he was allowed to be there. He wasn't like breaking and entering. He was just kind of curious to see what the school looked like. He didn't even think about his brother being there. And he realized that he looked at his arms and how thin he was, and how bruised up he was, and realized that she had actually started to abuse him. Unfortunately, she was never arrested. She was never imprisoned for what she had done to any of these boys. It's so sad that a parent can treat their child like that and get away with it. Like the Gabriel Fernandez case, that will always haunt me. And then, of course, the Likens case, which I did yesterday, or 2 days ago. That wasn't even her own parents, that was just people she was staying with. But there are so many cases of abuse out there that need to be told, and yes, some of them are so bad that you don't even want to speak it. I don't even want to say it into these microphones. But I'll tell you one thing, if they had to go through it, and I can't even say it, then I'm not doing them justice. I feel like if they had to go through it, then the least I can do is tell their story in a humane and the most respectful way I can. Because those people that hurt them, if you don't say anything for the victims, especially the ones that are not with us anymore, no, those victims' parents or victims' caretakers or whatever, abusers, will take over, and they're the ones who are going to say that that person was wrong, and that is not the truth at all. It was not David's fault. He should never have been treated like that. And his mom was absolutely wrong, but she was making him look bad because of his own actions after the fact. So, yes, he got out of that situation, but then he should have just gone and not gotten into any trouble, because it just gave her ammunition. So, his dad did actually come to, I do remember this, his dad did actually come to the hill wants me to sign this damn piece of paper, and I'm not signing it, but you're giving her ammunition. She's not. She's already done. You're already free. You're free. You're free. Away from her. Don't allow her to do this to you anymore, because she wants to put you away for the rest of your life and wants me to sign the papers, and luckily his father did not sign them. But he proved everybody wrong. Anyway, at the end, I brought that up at the end. He just wanted to be loved. And as he walks hand in hand with his son, walking around the lake that he knew all too well, he walks in and sees his wife, his child, and he realizes what a great life he does have. That the past has not defined him. It has actually shaped him, made him the fighter he is, made him the hero that he is today, and the Superman he wants to be for his son. So, if you have a chance to read that book, it's called A Man Named Dave. Pretty sure. Anyway, like I said, I don't know. Hopefully I did okay. But I know it's aggravating when somebody keeps looking down. It's just I'm